This episode of Captured Pittsburgh Darkroom has been made possible by generous contributions from Code and Supply Co-working Space, Small Universe, and Captured Identity. Today we're featuring the song Love in My Heart, Hell in My Soul by Brett Staggs. So we're doing a 5-camera production here.
Okay.
Because we like overkill.
I had a buddy at Apple, actually. He printed out like a little 1980s Macintosh machine holder for his Apple Watch. So it would charge it, and because the Apple Watch, when it charges, it's green. So it looked like the authentic green CRT.
See, people do stuff like this, and I make donation boxes.
From the start with a fake ID. Crisis of character, crisis of creed. Yeah, and I got love in my heart, but I got hell in my soul.
And welcome to another edition of Captured Pittsburgh Darkroom. Today you can see our new digs. Our latest place to give us a space to shoot is Code and Supply Co-working Space down here in Shadyside, not far from where Captured Pittsburgh had its very first events, and the gallery that we all know and love. And it's the gallery that brings us today. In fact, we're going to be talking to one of our selected artists, Mr. Matt Stark. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm originally from Ohio. Just from Youngstown, Ohio, a suburb Boardman. So just over the border. So I'm pretty familiar with Pittsburgh, you know. If we have like concerts or want to go to a museum, Pittsburgh's the place to go. So ended up coming here for college about 3 years ago. Go to the University of Pittsburgh for chemical engineering.
Very good.
Yeah, and I like the campus is awesome. Like really like being in Oakland and stuff. But yeah, so I go here for college, and I work at Apple.
Very close to the gallery.
Right. Yeah, right across the street. That was actually one of the coolest things about being featured, being able to go on like a break and just step outside, go sit down on the bench and look up and say, oh wow, there's my piece, just right there. So
yeah, you might be the first person that's actually close enough that they can just kind of leave work for a quick break and kind of sit in front of their own gallery picture.
Right, like anytime that I'm there.
And what do you do when you're not at work?
So when I'm not at work, I really like to go biking a lot. Because you'll see like a lot of my pieces are actually on the Great Allegheny Passage bike trail.
Okay.
Because I live over in West Mifflin. So it's little ways to the waterfront, and then I can get on the trail and I can go basically anywhere. Like,
all the way to DC if you needed to.
Well, right, yeah. So I usually just got out of the point and stuff, but in Boy Scouts, I actually went from Cumberland, Maryland, down to DC.
Okay.
So it was about like a 5-day trip or so. We ended up camping on the side of the trail, so it's a really cool experience if you ever really want to like live like on the road like that, because you have to carry everything on your bike. It's really minimalist, but
oh yeah,
it's an adventure. Yeah,
that's a good word for it.
Yeah, definitely, especially if it rains or something, because then you're stuck on a bike in the rain.
And there are few things that are more miserable than that, I think.
Right, yeah, I would definitely agree. And especially since we were down in Cumberland, it was like Maryland area, so it's kind of like getting to be like a little humid. It was summer, so really big bugs flying around.
Yeah, that would be the wrong time to be doing that, probably.
Right.
Of course, I guess if you're in school, you kind of have to do it during
summer. Well, yeah, that was my only option growing up, so.
Fair enough. So, but obviously one of your other pastimes is taking pictures, and how did you get into that?
Right, so like my whole childhood, like when I'm growing up, like my father wasn't really a photographer, but he always had a camera. So like every get-together, every vacation, there's always pictures of me and like pictures of my family, and it's really cool to be able to go back and look at that. So, and I mean, even with my grandparents, like they had like huge photo albums from like way back. So I just kind of wanted to like follow in that tradition. So I always take pictures on my phone. Like I always like to just document like every moment, because then you can go back and you can see, hey, I remember that. And then it reignites a memory, and like it's a really cool experience just to have photos like that. So like my interest in photography, I mean, I always had like a cell phone to take pictures with. Tried to take some classes in high school, but it just never worked out in my schedule. So didn't really learn like film or like darkroom or anything like that, which I wanted to learn, like actually developing and stuff, but you know, definitely in the future maybe. But for actual photography, when I started at Apple, one of my coworkers knew that I had like an interest in photography, and he let me borrow one of his mirrorless Sony cameras.
Okay.
So I kind of started on that. I had it for like 4 or 5 months, like took it around, like started to learn like shutter speed, ISO, like what those words are, what they mean, like how you have to manipulate them all. And then it really started though this a year ago from this past spring break. Me and my buddy decided to go to the West Coast, and we went from Seattle all the way down to San Francisco.
Okay.
So I just decided, like, I really like taking photos, like I really like seeing amazing photos. So let's get a real camera and let's go. So that's really where it started. And then I realized like I really love it. Like once I had like the proper equipment for it.
That makes a big difference.
Exactly, because it's one thing to be shooting on a phone, but like when you have the power of like a DSLR or something like that, like you can really hone in your skill and figure out exactly what you like shooting and like how to just make anything look really cool.
And it also gives you a kind of a problem there because there's so many more things also that can go wrong.
Right.
So do you remember the earliest photo you ever took?
So I mean, I have a lot of like early photos from point and shoots from cell phones, but the first like photo that I would say is like more professional quality was on that mirrorless camera. And it was actually, I was on a trip to Seven Springs, and it was pretty challenging because I mean I was trying to take pictures of the slopes, and I mean they're snow covered. It was getting dark. It was snowing. The big spotlights are on the hill, so it didn't turn out too well.
Yeah, that's kind of challenging to shoot white things in a dark environment.
Right. Well, while it's snowing, more white things in the way to cut out the light. Yep.
Well, at that point, if I remember right, they're actually sodium vapor lights, that kind of that orangish, yellowish tinge. So it's not even really white at that point, right?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like it makes everything. Yeah, it has that orange tint to it, and they're so spaced out too. You have these blobs of bright, and then just pitch black, and then bright. So, not very good photos.
Yeah, that one's a challenge to get right. Do you have a favorite photo?
So one of my favorite photos is actually a pretty recent one. It was from back in February when we had some of those warmer mornings, just freak warmer mornings in the winter there. So I decided like 5 a.m., let's go out and try to get a picture of a sunrise. So I was down on the North Shore, over in front of the one monument of Mr. Roger over there. So like right down on the water there. And I was just getting into long exposures with like light trails and everything. So there was some kind of construction vehicle for the park, like driving down the side. So I figured let's get a long exposure and make a light trail from that. So it turned into a really cool photo because you have the light trail on the side, and then the water and the clouds, because it's a long exposure, are really like drifting over the city. And the way the sunrise is coming up, it puts a really like ominous glow behind the skyline. So it reminds me kind of like a Gotham-esque kind of thing, like Batman, because a lot of it was filmed in Pittsburgh, so kind of eerie picture, but I really like it.
Oh, very good. Well, we'll talk about your most recent photo, the gallery photo. We'll talk about that in a moment here, but we do have to take a short break for a couple quick messages. We will be right back. Captured in Pittsburgh would like to congratulate all of the artists selected for the June gallery. Come join us on June 3rd for the unveiling. Artists meet and greet at 11:30 a.m. and unveiling at noon. This episode of Captured Pittsburgh Darkroom was filmed at Kodat Supply. It's a co-working space in East Liberty that is more than just a place to work with other people. It's also a job board and a place to find great events, including meet and greets, lectures, and workshops. Welcome back. We're still talking to Matt Stark, and right now we're going to talk a little bit about the gallery photo, and I guess you had a more unusual path to finding our gallery than most.
Right, yeah. So I've been working at Apple for the last 2 years about, and I started there right before the gallery was a thing. So whenever I was on my breaks, I would go out to the park across the street. I mean, it had nice benches and everything, but it was kind of like overgrown. There were like shrubs everywhere, and I noticed that the shrubbery went away. Like it started looking nicer. The steel cables went up between the light posts, and I was trying to think like, what are those for? What's going to go here? And then one day I walked out and saw all these photos up, and I thought, how cool is that? I can just go on a break and look at like local artists like putting their photography out and showing the world.
And you didn't immediately start submitting photos to the gallery?
So surprisingly, that was back around the time where I first started using that mirrorless camera. And so that was like 6 months before I bought my DSLR. And then like using that timeline, about a year later is when I actually first started posting photos from my DSLR. I started posting on my Instagram account, and I started sharing with you guys back in January. So just a couple months back.
Okay, and we've already managed to get you up there. So that's a kind of a success story, I suppose.
It was definitely a cool moment when I logged on Instagram and just got a message from you guys. I was like, wow, okay, this doing something right.
Yeah, so this was definitely, I guess, definitely your first gallery then, it sounds like.
Right, yeah, definitely the first gallery ever for any type of medium there. And it's a really cool experience to be in a gallery because, I mean, let alone just like being featured online, because everybody's so used to being featured on social media, but having something physical in the world to like walk down the street and look up and actually see something there that you made. It's a really humbling experience.
And you kind of get to see that every break now, I suppose.
Right, yeah.
Or at least for that month.
Yeah, I mean, for the month of April, like, it's been a little cold, but hopefully.
Were you kind of dragging out your coworkers out there on break and be like, oh, yeah, blah. Oh, hey, did you notice?
Yeah, so it was actually cool the night that we did the gallery opening. Somebody noticed me, like, through the window, so they were all, like, looking over throughout the night, and I went over there afterwards, and they were asking, hey, what are you doing out there with all these people standing on ladders and looking at photos? So I was telling them, like, I got my photo in there, and then it was cool because all through the month, I would have coworkers come up, and they'd be like, do you have a photo outside? Is that the same Matt Stark? And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Well, that's kind of a fun experience there.
Right.
So how did this particular photo come about?
So for this photo, I was actually on kind of like a little like family trip with my dad because he's really into history. Like I really enjoy going to museums. We decided to check out Carey Furnaces. So right down there in like the Rankin Swissville area, we went on a tour. They have tours on
Oh, really?
like certain weekends, like in the warmer months, they'll do a guided tour.
Okay.
So there's actually a historian or somebody that just knows a lot about it. They'll walk you through all the different parts of Carey Furnace, so you can see like where they actually made the ore, like all the different inner workings. So it was really cool. Of course, I had my camera, so a lot of photo opportunities there. But instead of just like looking up and getting pictures of like the smokestacks and stuff, it was really cool just walking around and seeing how nature is kind of just taking it all back, because it's been sitting there since I think it closed in like the 70s or 80s. So there's nobody out there cutting the grass or taking care of anything. So it's really cool to see stuff falling apart like that.
Oh, so there's that much disrepair within the lifetimes of some of the people in this room.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty amazing how fast stuff can like be taken back by nature.
And what is this building specifically?
So that building, yeah. So we were towards the water side of Carey Furnace, and that's where they would bring in, I think, like the raw minerals that they would make the iron ore out of. This was like a little office building next to the big machinery that would like topple the train car and pour out all the ore into the big chutes. Okay,
it's a little administrative building that's kind of.
Yeah, something like that, I'm thinking.
Getting the ravages of time. Okay. Very good. Well, thanks for coming out and talking to us. Thanks for submitting a photo.
For having me.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks again to Code and Supply co-working space for giving us the space to do these episodes. And if you really like us, please go ahead, subscribe to us if you're watching us on YouTube. Give us the thumbs up kind of down here in the lower right. If you're listening to us on iTunes, go ahead and give us some ratings. Those really help us out there. And we'll see you next time at the gallery, and see you the next time we have an episode of Captured Pittsburgh Darkroom. This has been a production of Captured Cities. Captured Pittsburgh Darkroom is produced by Jason Fait, Adam Thomas, and Jason Kodat. Production assistance for this episode was provided by John Hall and Dave Perlowski. Copyright 2018.